Good morning, conference, and welcome to Time to Thrive. I am Giovanni Blair McKenzie, one of HRC's youth ambassadors, and I'm here to introduce to you an amazing woman who's been an ally to our community for much of her life. You may know Andi Murphy as the mother of Ryan Murphy, an openly gay filmmaker who, in addition to creating one of my favorite TV shows, American Horror Story, has brought the stories of LGBTQ youth to life through the television show Glee. In addition to raising a successful and proud gay son, she's also a writer and publisher and a longtime advocate for equal and fair treatment of LGBTQ people. Please join me in welcoming the beloved Andi Murphy.
Wow. This is my first time to be involved in the HRC campaign and conference, and I can tell you I've been so absolutely blown away by this whole opportunity. So I only have one word to say, followed by two others, and that is wow. And the others words to follow that up was, it's about time. It's really been, it's a wonderful privilege for me to be here, and I know a lot of you are decades younger, sitting out in this audience, and you might wonder what this gray-headed old woman could contribute to this important conversation. So I would like to share a bit of my life experiences with you that I have rarely spoken about publicly. When I was 32, I suffered an attack to my central nervous system from a rare autoimmune disease not yet known to science at that time. We now today know that we don't know what causes it, and there is no cure. And I am here in advance of time, and they don't know why. There are many elements of my everyday life that I lost. It hit me and attacked my memory. So I lost all my reoccurring memories from grade school on up, which was kind of hard because I had to learn to read and write, holding a knife and a fork. One of the most difficult small issues to conquer, tying my shoes, and learning who the handsome man was that was sitting at my bedside. He was, in fact, my husband. I didn't know who he was. What were my dreams? What had I done with my life? Janine Murphy was a complete stranger to me. One night before I was released from the hospital, an older nurse came to my bedside. She gave me a note and said, "May this guide you on your new journey of discovery. You have a rare chance that few are given to start anew. You shouldn't be here today, but you are." When she left, I opened the note, and this is what it said. An elderly woman in the final days of her life is lying in bed alone. She awakens to see a large group of people clustered around her bed. Their faces are loving but sad. Confused, the old woman smiles weakly and whispers, "You must be my childhood friends that have come to say goodbye. I am so grateful." Moving closer, the tallest figure gently grasps the old woman's hand and replies, "Yes, we are your best friends and your oldest friends. But as long ago, you abandoned us. We are the unfulfilled promises of your youth. We are the unrealized hopes and dreams and plans that you once felt deeply about in your heart but never pursued. We are your fears that caused you to hide. We are the unique talents that you never refined, the special gifts you never discovered, the cause that you never stood up for. Old friend, we've not come to comfort you, but to die with you." That note played an important role in changing me from a person named Janine to a woman who wanted to take her father's nickname of Andi. Andi would be fearless. Today, I hope Janine is proud of the woman I've become and the things that I've done with my life, her life. Many of you are here tonight. You don't remember the 80s. Some of you weren't even born yet. Texting, Twitter, all of those things we never had. And in some ways, I'm glad. But the 80s was a period when both my life and the LGBTQ community were forever changed by the onset of AIDS crisis. From 1984 to 1988, the governor of Indiana appointed me to work across the state to address the myths circulating in the general public about AIDS and HIV. In those days, the medical community working in the field of infectious diseases was just starting to learn what HIV and AIDS were, and most people had no idea how HIV was transmitted. People were scared, and unfortunately, that fear often turned into discrimination and hateful attacks on the population most identified with the carriers. Educating the public was critical to fighting the growing epidemic and the stigma facing those who were suffering with AIDS. After the announcement made by a famous actor many of you may not remember, his name was Rock Hudson. He was my heartthrob. I loved him. Sharing the world with his own AIDS diagnosis, my office was the only publicized information site identified in the media, as it was a large regional blood center. Almost immediately, we began to receive more than 150 phone calls a day. People wanted to understand, but had few resources to educate themselves. And remember, back then, we didn't have the internet as it is today. There was no Twitter, no Facebook, nothing like that. My very first phone call came from a woman who immediately after I said hello, announced in a panicked voice, "I'm infected with AIDS. My family has left me. I don't know what to do." I stopped her and asked if a doctor had diagnosed her. She said, "No, I've been eating them for over 3 months, 3 times a day." "Eating what?" I questioned. "Those diet caramels, AIDS." In those days, there was a diet supplement called AIDS, AIDS, and it was the most popular product on the market. I knew at that moment that my role as a public informational officer was going to be more difficult than anything I had ever done before. But you know what? Anything attached to fear always is. During those 4 years, I gave more than 1,500 presentations across the state of Indiana, including to some very interesting audiences like a nudist resort in South Bend that I had no idea was a nudist group until I arrived and was greeted at the front door by a very handsome young man in a bathrobe, and he said, "We're so happy to have you here." And I'm thinking, I am lost. I'm at the wrong place. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm supposed to give a lecture today." And he said, "Yes, we've been waiting for you." So he led me down a beautiful hallway in this very large mansion, and there were 300 nude attendees waiting for me to speak to them. So I did what any good PR person would do. I put every single one of them in a nice business suit, and I went on. It was the most fun I'd had in days. I did decline to share a bathrobe with them that day, but nevertheless. The other interesting group that stands out in my mind was a motorcycle gang in Indy, which had a large boa constrictor snake as their mascot. When I arrived, I parked on the street in front of their clubhouse. They came out, 4 big, very big men, and said, "We need to move your car." And I said, "Oh, well, here's the keys." And he said, "We don't need that." And I'm like, "What?" They picked up my car and they moved it from the street up right by their clubhouse door. And the one gentleman said, "This is not a safe neighborhood, a place to park a car especially. It'd be stripped in 5 minutes, but no one will dare bother it up by our door." That was a very interesting day as well. I did ask them one favor. I said, "I cannot deliver this speech until you put that very large boa constrictor somewhere else because I'm deathly afraid of snakes." Guess where they put it? In my car. I'm not making this up. Truth is always better than fiction any day of the word. As a writer, I know that. When I got ready to leave, I said, "Is that going to have left anything in my car?" And he said, "If you're thinking of eggs, no." And I said, I wasn't thinking of that. So that was a good day. I got out with my life, I felt, so to speak. But my most important role was to spend as much time as I could visiting and caring for the very first patients who presented with AIDS-related symptoms. The pain I saw each day at the bedsides of so many young, dying men and abandoned babies from drug-addicted mothers infected with the disease was overwhelming at times. At this time, in my city, there was only one hospital in Indianapolis that would admit AIDS patients because even the medical community was scared and lacked understanding. My colleague and I were given extensive training on the subject at the Center for Disease Control, and at times, we were the only people who seemed to be able to move beyond the fear and prejudice to care for and stand by the patients who were suffering so horribly. I will never forget this period in my life, seeing the judgments these young men and women faced, holding their hands and carrying out their last wishes. Hearing them tell me the last words that they wanted their loved ones. They wanted to say goodbye. There were some who came too late to say goodbye, or who didn't come at all. For their stories, they moved me in a deep and profound ways, even to this very moment. Memories cannot be erased. I don't want them to ever be erased. Later, a young Ryan White from Lafayette, Indiana, who contracted AIDS from a transfusion, he was a hemophiliac, would shine, and his story would become a Hollywood media favorite. To say he was mistreated by his own community would be a vast understatement. But Michael Jackson and Elton John would come to Indianapolis and spend days. They were his best and only friends. During the 1980s, I also had a gay son who was in his late teens and early 20s. You may know him as the award-winning creator of shows like Glee, American Horror Story, movies such as Running with Scissors, Eat, Pray, Love, and most importantly, a feature film on HBO called The Normal Heart. If you haven't seen that film, I thank you for that applause and for my son, because he was the only person in Hollywood brave enough to tackle how it really was in the beginning. If you've not seen that film, you should watch it, because it will show you the incredible work that went in to changing the tide from misunderstanding. But back then, as it is today, he was my son Ryan. He was a big stinker when he was a little kid. I can honestly tell you, Ryan never had a coming out moment. Our family never really had a discussion like that. I don't know why. When he entered the spotlight of fame, he didn't hold a press conference or place calls to us or anyone else about being gay, but he also never hid who he was or tried to avoid being labeled gay. He knew who he was, and he owned it. Today, he continues to be a leader, an inspiration to many. And as he has become more and more visible as a famous gay man, he has remained and always will be just my son Ryan. As a teenager, Ryan's arguments with his father were always over the typical teenage things like missing his curfew or getting caught drinking a beer. His dad, Jim, was a strong Irish Catholic, and he and Ryan shared that strong will. So they often clashed, but Jim was and always was proud of his son. And even though it was in a cruel time period for gay boys and men when Ryan was growing up, Ryan was confident in his own skin. He saw the destiny he wanted, and he went after it. Today, he has a closet full of Emmys, Golden Globes, and a prestigious Genius Award from the entertainment community. I can't tell you how proud I am of that Genius Award, but I can also tell you I had nothing to do with it, even though I'm really proud of it. I can also tell you when I went to his house, when he first moved to Beverly Hills, he has all kinds of awards, Emmys, Golden Globes, you name it. They were nowhere. And I said to him, Ryan, where are your awards? You've got several fireplaces. Couldn't you put them on the mantles? And he goes, oh, they're in the TV room. So I went into the TV room, and I didn't see them. So I went back out, and I said, they're not in there. And he said, oh, they're in the closet. So when he came back in with me, he opened the closet, and there they were, stacked from ceiling to the floor. And I said to him, why do you keep them in here? And he said, because, Mom, in Hollywood, you're only as good as your last project, your last film, your last series. And he said, well, I'm working on things that I know have to be addressed. And I get that feeling, I can't do this. I'm going to fail. He said, I walk in here, and I open that door, and I look at those, and I say, oh, okay, you can handle this. You can do this one more time. He is still humble in all of his talents. But he is most proud of his happy marriage to David, who I adore. He is the best son-in-law in the whole world, and I'm so lucky to have him as my family. The two sons they adore are incredibly, wonderfully loved. And anyone that ever tells me that gay or bisexual or transgendered individuals cannot be the best of parents had better duck. As always, his priorities are always in place. Things have changed so much since then, but the LGBTQ youth still face enormous challenges, including prejudice, misinformation, and stigma. These issues are even greater for those living with and affected by HIV. Today, I find myself very concerned for these young people who may not know how hard this community and its allies fought to turn the tide against HIV, battles we are still fighting even today. We have come so far from medical advances that allow people to live long, healthy lives, to media campaigns that celebrate rather than demonize people infected. But there's still so much to do. And ladies and gentlemen, you're doing it. You're doing it. And Dr. Vinny, who has started this conference, Time to Thrive, I want you all to know I've adopted him. I love him. I love his family. You are all our family. So you're all adopted too. For those of you who are teachers or work in schools, you spend more time with our youth in your school and your classroom as parents do. If you see anyone, and I know you know this, and I know you do this, but if you see someone who seems not to be feeling good about themselves, or is called names or bullied, or struggling with their sexuality, take an extra moment to recognize the good you see in them and encourage them. Believe me when I tell you that I know from a personal experience how words of encouragement and a caring understanding of a person's life path can make a difference in how they see themselves and others. I wouldn't be standing here today if I didn't have this experimental cell phone implanted in my chest. It's very unusual. It feels like it weighs 10 pounds. But I'm still living with an incurable autoimmune disease, and I dare it to try to take me away until I'm ready. That's what the message should be. Today, I often speak to children and youth who are trying to find their way in this world. So for those of you who are here, I'll close by saying what I always say when I speak to young people. First and foremost, inspire yourself. Discover your passions. Engage yourself in actions that can move change forward. Be political. Vote. Be fearless. Be humble. Be forgiving. Give more of yourself to others and expect nothing in return. And always remember that love is always stronger than hate. Never, ever let anyone judge you for who they want you to be. You are special in God's eyes, as He made all of us in His image. Go out into the world with your dreams. Don't let them die. Know who you are inside and own it with pride. And always do your best to be the kind of person you were always meant to be. God bless all of you, and thank you for listening to a person who is 73, soon to be 74. I celebrate the entire weekend. I want you to know that. Gifts are always accepted. But most of all, I love the hugs, because that's who we were all meant to be, a person who is a lovable person and who understands how to give love back. I'm still a work in progress. I hope to be more active in this incredible campaign in any way that I might. I'm speaking for Ryan. He probably would be mortified if he knew what I said. But trust me, he is a person who has done more in his own way to take a subject and put it out there with music and joy. He has tackled every subject you could possibly imagine in Glee. And that's why he stopped doing Glee, because he said, I can't find another subject we haven't already done. So God bless my son. I'll be with him on Wednesday. God bless all of you, and may one day I come back to you. Thank you very much.